everyone. Namaste. This is Janwanjali Kocher. Welcome back to my channel, Tookwings Blog by Janwanjali Kocher. So today's podcast was a very interesting one, I would say. This is all about neuroscience. This is all about neuroscience, this technology reading consumers' mind and then helping, companies. And this is like this was a very interesting conversation for me to understand that like devices like such also exist, such as Neurosensum. So we spoke to the founder of Neurosensum, Mr. Rajiv Lamba, and he gave his amazing insights on evolution of technology, AI, neuroscience in consumer research and in marketing research. So if you are into marketing research, or if you are a consumer yourself, and if you have any questions to you might have so many questions how technology is playing out with the minds and everything. I think this podcast is for you. This is going to answer all the questions out there, and this has been a wonderful conversation. You guys go watch it, and if you further have any questions, do let us know in the comment section below, and we'll connect you with Mr. Rajiv Lamba, and you can take it from there. Hi Rajiv, welcome to Kahaniyaan by Tookwings Blog. How are you?
Hi, Anjali. I'm doing good. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Great. So, today we'll talk a lot about neuroscience, and we'll also dive into the importance of data and how it is helping the businesses out there. And we'll dive deep into a lot of concepts today. But at Kahania, we have a tradition that we start our podcast with one story that defines you or that makes you you. So, what is that one story that you would like to share with all of us?
I think it's a very interesting question. Uh, I think the story possibly that defines me is a story of resilience,
Hmm.
the story of never giving up.
Hmm.
Possibly, I think that's the way I was groomed as a child. I was a sports enthusiast, and I think through my sports, whether it's playing tennis, playing cricket, I learned that there will be ups and downs in life. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose, but you
Hmm.
never give up. And that's what possibly defines me, and that's what has defined my entrepreneurship journey also. I
Hmm.
think that there have been very tough times. Of course, every entrepreneur goes through it, not me per se. There have been very tough times where business has not been great, fundraising was very difficult. But how do you kind of sail through it?
Hmm.
Is possibly what defines me. Uh, I'm a firm believer that whatever happens, my company will always be successful.
Hmm.
Recession, no recession, I tell that to my employees also.
Hmm.
Sometimes they come back, market is slowing down, recession is around the corner, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Recession, no recession, we will always do well. I think that's a belief I carry in myself, as well as I believe the same I pass on to my team.
That's amazing. So we really want to know, the story behind starting Neurosensum. What was the idea? What was the main, problem you were going to solve with the startup? So what is the story behind Neurosensum?
So I started this company in 2018. So there's a big problem in market research. It's very prevalent. The way traditional research has been done, that I ask you and you tell me, right? And people they normally ask on a rating scale, 1 to 5, 1 to 7,
Hmm.
1 to 10. The problem with that is people they tend to give you very nice and polite answers,
Hmm.
especially Asians. Never they will tell you over face that something is not good. They might not like it, but I
Hmm.
think as a culture we have been always been brought up that you don't say very harsh things on the face,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So that's the biggest issue that was always there.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
and brands they launched their products, their campaigns based on what consumers are saying.
Hmm.
And they did not do well, or many times they didn't do well.
Hmm.
Uh, I think 8 out of 10 times the claim-based research is called claim-based research doesn't always give you the accurate results.
Hmm.
So the holy grail was, can I read your mind? Can
Hmm.
I read my consumer's mind? What they're thinking.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's how neuroscience came in.
Hmm.
And that's what we launched in 2018, which is, can we use neuroscience-based technology
Hmm.
like brain signals, facial expressions, eye tracking,
Hmm.
implicit testing. There's a lot of methodologies around that where we can go beyond what consumers are saying.
Hmm.
So can I, so when you're eating a product, can I read your brain signals?
Hmm.
When looking at a campaign, can I look at your facial expressions?
Hmm.
And can I understand your deep emotions
Hmm.
using these technologies to really understand, is something appealing you, is something making you angry, is something, possibly is confusing you, something boring you, without
Hmm.
even asking you. That's how the neuroscience comes into picture. And and uh, and that basically led to the entire world of neuromarketing,
Hmm.
where marketers use a lot of these technologies to understand consumer emotions so that they can create campaigns which can appeal your subconscious mind.
Hmm. But how does this all work? I mean, let's say I'm using some product. So I'm
Mhm.
a consumer, I'm using some sort of product. So how is that company using neuroscience to read my mind? I just want to, simplify for everyone out there.
Sure. I think, thanks. I think let me just get a bit more in detail how it happens. So
Hmm.
imagine you're a consumer
Hmm.
who's using a product, and
Hmm.
that company wants to understand what you think about the product, right? That's a problem statement.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll invite you as a consumer to come to our office. Of course,
Okay.
I have to take your consent.
Hmm.
When you come to our office, I'll ask that can we spend some time with you,
Hmm.
uh, and you come to our office and we start having a discussion.
Hmm.
I'll take your permission to put a small device on your head. It's a headband. Imagine it like a headband. I'll give you product A to try. Then I'll
Hmm.
give you product B to try. I'll give you product C to try.
Hmm.
While you're trying this product from the headband, I'm measuring your brain signals.
Okay.
Our brain is nothing, it's a neurotransmitter, right? We've got
Hmm.
80 billion neurons in our brain.
Hmm.
And 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 there are frequencies like alpha, beta, delta, theta, gamma. You can't hear those frequencies because the magnitude is very small. But the idea is through these devices, we read those brain signals.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when you are consuming something or when you're looking at something,
Hmm.
there is some radio frequencies which are getting emitted in your brain.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So the idea of those devices is to capture those frequencies
Hmm. Hmm.
and to understand how's your brain responding,
Oh,
whether
okay.
something is so imagine it like a neurologist, right? When people they
Right.
go to a neurologist and they try to understand their brain scan,
Hmm.
and neurologists they understand whether it's epilepsy issue, attention issue. What they do ultimately they put a EEG devices, but those are really many electrode devices. We don't
Hmm.
use as complex as that technology. We use relatively easier
Hmm.
technology. Let's put it in a layman way. But the idea is to read your brain signals
Hmm.
and to understand whether, without even asking you, can I understand is my product engaging you?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because the brain can say a lot,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? And that's how neuroscience is applied in a normal marketing terminology, whether be it a product or a creative or a packaging.
Okay. So, the consumer has to be present in office to do the testing, and this is not happening while we are just online, watching the product online or things like that.
It can also happen online,
Okay.
but for online, I cannot put a device on your head. But for
Mm-hmm.
online, I have to ask you to give me access to your web camera
Okay.
and your consent. The moment you give an access of your camera,
Mm-hmm.
then while I'm showing you something, I will read your facial expression, not me. The software will read your facial expression, whether smiling, whether sad, and it
Mm-hmm.
will look at your eye tracking movement.
Mm-hmm.
So this can be done virtually also.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I can't do the EEG on your head because we are present virtually. But through a virtual, I can do a facial expression. I can do eye tracking, which is
Mm-hmm.
also neuro technique to understand your expression and your feelings.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, this technology is used for just for marketing purposes, or it is, otherwise also people are using it, let's say, for interview purposes to track the, into guess expressions and to understand what he's feeling or something like that.
You can use it in multiple domains. For example, facial technology or facial expressions can also be used for HR interviews, like the way you said it,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many things that you can read through facial expressions. Uh, Athletes they use this a lot
Hmm.
to train their mind. Uh,
Hmm.
these techniques have been used a lot also in the meditation.
Hmm.
In meditation, what you're trying to do, you're trying to relax yourself, right? You're trying to relax your mind. So
Hmm.
imagine when you're meditating and put this each device in your head, it
Hmm.
will tell you whether you're getting into a relaxation zone or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
How good is your meditation is something
Hmm.
you can also check with these devices. Uh,
Okay.
it can even be used by a simulation. For example, when jet pilots
Hmm.
they're simulating how attentive they are
Hmm.
when they are in a scenario of a war, for example.
Hmm.
It can also be used by them so that you can simulate those environments
Hmm. Hmm.
to see how attentive or how relaxed you are using these devices.
But then, if I imagine this doing while doing my meditation, I would be stressed all the time that I'm wearing some sort of a device, isn't it?
It is. So I think that's where a bit of calibration is required.
Hmm.
You directly do not get into a stimuli testing,
Hmm.
right? You wear it, then you go through some particular what we call as calibration. For example, in normal market research,
Hmm.
I will not ask you to look at the campaign of a client. I'll
Hmm.
first possibly show you a Kapil Sharma show
Okay.
so that you get a bit
Hmm.
attuned to it. Because
Hmm.
if I directly get a stimulus in front of you and ask you to test it, of course
Hmm.
you become very conscious. So I have to kind of ensure
Right.
that your mind gets into that relaxation, and that's where the calibration helps before
Right.
the actual stimulus has been tested. Yeah.
Right. Right. And what kind of companies are engaging with this experiment, if I may ask?
I think a lot of them, in fact, now it's been very widely used as a technology. There are a lot of companies around the world. For example, I know Ajinomoto is one of them,
Hmm.
which is using around the world. I'm aware that Coke uses a lot of these methodologies. Pepsi uses a lot of these methodologies. Uh, and many companies around the world are using it.
Hmm.
It can be a consumer good company, e-commerce, automotive. Many companies around the world are using these technologies to understand the consumer feeling.
Hmm, 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 hmm. And to elaborate a bit more on the story part of it, like how a consumer reacts. So, how many consumers do a company does like require to test I mean a product review or a customer review?
Okay, so we normally recommend minimum of 30 to 40.
30 to 40.
So people can take 40 samples, it's called sampling. So we
Hmm.
can have 40 consumers testing it, and it can go as high as 200,
Hmm.
depending upon how many cities we want to do, how many, you want to do male, female, you want to do different demographics, different cities. So
Hmm.
minimum is what we recommend is 30, and the maximum can go even a bit high as a 200 as a sample.
Hmm. 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 Great. And like the today in today's age, if we talk about technology, any kind of technology, then the buzzword today these days is AI. So
Yeah.
are we using AI in the technology as well?
Yes, we are. Because see, ultimately, when you're picking up these brain signals,
Hmm.
and when you're trying to model those signals to predict an outcome,
Hmm.
now those outcomes are automatically refined,
Right.
right? For example, every time I cannot just sit and manually calculate because as the more and more data is coming in,
Hmm.
more and more these algorithms are getting trained to give
Hmm.
me a predictive analytics.
Hmm.
How many percentage of consumers are engaged?
Hmm.
Those who are engaged, what percentage are likely to buy? Because
Hmm.
it's really subconscious reading because not a claim data. But that's where AI comes in, where these algorithms are being built to further train to get into what we call the predictive algorithms, right? Predictive analytics.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
where the AI comes in along with the neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what are the parameters basically? I mean, what are the parameters we are testing on, and then what are the result parameters we take a look at while we start a market research for the campaign?
Okay, so I think a simpler parameter is a campaign
Hmm.
that you want to test, right? The way it happens that we are inviting a consumer to our office. The
Hmm.
consumer is putting a headband.
Hmm.
They're watching an ad of a client either on a phone or on a desktop.
Hmm.
And from there, that's the initial stimulus, right?
Hmm.
And from there, we are recording those brain signals, as I told you, alpha, beta, delta, theta, gamma.
Hmm.
Those are getting recorded from the brain. That
Hmm.
get converted into a metric.
Hmm.
A metric is called attention and relaxation.
Hmm.
Attention is, are you focused?
Okay.
Relaxation is, are you in a frame of mind to absorb the messages?
Hmm.
So if you're highly focused, highly relaxed, it means you're engaged.
Okay.
Okay. So these are called brain states.
Hmm.
All right. Are you engaged? Are you bored? Are you confused? Are you
Hmm.
literally sleeping?
Hmm.
Now, just to give you a very simple example, if I ask you to remember any billboard that you have remember seeing yesterday
Hmm.
while you were driving or you were on the road, do you remember seeing any billboard?
Hmm. So I don't remember any as of now since you just asked me so abruptly.
So you would have possibly passed by how many billboards? 40, 50, 20, 30
Hmm.
easily, right? But you don't remember any of them.
Hmm.
So possibly when you were on the road, those billboards were there, but they just could not grab your attention,
Right. Hmm.
right? So while you were walking, if I would have put this easy, imagine if I would have put the easy device on your head, it would have shown me a zero attention meter when the stimulus was getting passed. It means
Hmm.
your brain is telling you to automatically switch off.
Hmm.
Okay, because God has designed in such a great way
Hmm.
that we only want to absorb what we want to absorb
Hmm. Hmm.
until something really is appealing to you,
Hmm.
right? And that's why you don't remember seeing any billboard.
Hmm.
So when you look from a metric perspective, you might have been in a relaxed zone
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
you're able to absorb messages, right? That's
Hmm.
why you might be absorbing other messages around you. That might be, God forbid, there was an accident, you would have absorbed that message,
Hmm.
right? While you were passing the red light, you would have seen that red light has become green, you were absorbing that message.
Hmm. Hmm.
But you did not see these billboards, possibly they were not attention grabbing,
Hmm.
which means your brain automatically got into what we call as a bored zone
Hmm.
for that stimuli.
Hmm.
Okay. So in a way, metrics is very simple. Are you attentive? Are you able to, is the stimulus or an ad grabbing your attention? And are you in a frame of mind to absorb it?
Hmm. Hmm.
If
Hmm.
both of them are positive, it means it's able to engage you,
Right.
right? If you were in a frame of mind to absorb it, but your attention was very low, you could not focus on that, it means you were in a bored zone.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
The problem with most of the research is at a claim level, people will say, yes, I liked it,
Hmm.
but subconsciously they get detached.
Hmm.
Okay, I always give a very classic example. And this is called brain state, right? We are ultimately measuring the brain state. So
Hmm.
when you're watching an ad, which part of the ad is engaging you, which part of the ad is boring you,
Hmm.
which part of the ad is confusing you, is what we normally measure.
Hmm.
Now imagine if I show you a creative
Hmm.
of a mother cooking a meal,
Hmm.
like it's a seasoning ad. Imagine it like that, right?
Hmm.
Mother cooking a meal for the kid and the family. Everybody's happy, nice aroma, nice food, nice happy family. And if I ask you, do you like the campaign? What you will say normally, you will
Yes.
say nice, right?
Hmm.
I like it. And you will say, yeah, I remember mother cooking it. Food was
Hmm.
nice, happy family. But if the execution is not done in a very differentiated way, what your brain will do at a subconscious level, it will switch off. Why
Hmm.
it will switch off? Because your brain is automatically playing that story.
Hmm. Hmm.
I have seen this story 1,000 times in
Hmm.
different ways,
Hmm.
right? Be a seasoning ad, be a Maggie ad, be whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
Your brain would have seen this 1,000 times in different campaigns, and your
Hmm.
brain is switching off. Why it is switching off? Did you tell it to switch off? No. It's
Hmm.
automatically switching off because it has already played that story.
Hmm. Hmm.
It means though you're claiming that I like it,
Hmm.
but subconsciously you're already completely detached
Hmm.
because your mind is in a bored state,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's what neuroscience helps us to do. It helps us to understand is something really engaging you, is
Hmm.
something confusing you, something boring you,
Right. So
right?
are
Because
right.
yeah,
So are consumers really interested in, companies barging into their minds and their sort of privacy?
I think see, uh, it's not the consumers are always interested because of course the reality of the life is that we incentivize them to participate in this,
Hmm.
right? But when they're coming into participation, they really don't know what all we will ask them to do in detail,
Hmm.
right? We give them a sense of what's going to happen. We
Hmm.
don't show them the stimuli. We tell them, we'll put a headband which is going to measure your brain signals, so on and so forth,
Hmm.
and they get incentivized for that process.
Hmm. Hmm.
But at the same time, as per the market research fraternity, we cannot reveal the data at the individual level
Okay.
to the client. For
Okay.
example, if I do a market research on you, I can
Mm-hmm.
use your data along with others as an aggregated form.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot share Anjali's data as an individual.
Right.
Okay, so that's the privacy thing which is being followed.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I take your consent to collect the data, but I
Mm-hmm.
also will tell you that this data will not be revealed at an individual level. It will
Mm-hmm.
be only presented at the aggregated level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you have not given me a consent of giving your individual data. I can only use it at aggregated level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So, why do you believe that the use of neuroscience is important, or what is the scope of it in when it comes to marketing? Whether we talk about smaller companies, medium-sized companies, or larger companies.
I think a very interesting question. I think the first big question that you've asked is why I believe it is important,
Hmm.
right? A simple belief is in a context when people are always giving you nice and polite answers,
Hmm.
do you really trust that score to be accurate one,
Hmm.
right? The holy grail has always been, can I read your mind, right? Can I read your subconscious? Because that's where you take a lot of decisions.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's why neuroscience becomes important because it helps you to understand the subconscious part of the brain,
Hmm.
which is what we call a system one,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Because that part of the brain is what everybody wants to understand because people they know that uh, do I really trust somebody telling me five because we know how our society works in a
Hmm.
normal way. Like
Hmm.
Atiti Devo Bhava is still is a prime thing
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
innovation
Hmm.
in that context. So that's the neuroscience becomes very important.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right. But in my view, like if I think of it, then in my view, the idea of, letting someone read my thoughts is a bit frightening for me, to be honest. Like
mhm.
using technology to read my own mind, now I start assuming, things that might happen because of that as well, right? So,
Yeah.
what are the challenges you face there?
See, the challenges have to be that you have to have a complete disclaimer
Hmm.
around it, right? Now we are not using this uh, at a standalone data, like
Hmm.
as I mentioned.
Right.
First, there's a proper consent been taken. Second, the things have been explained to the consumer. And
Mm-hmm.
third part is that it's not been given to anybody at an individual level,
Right. Hmm.
right? Now, those things have been taken care of so that I'm presenting that detail. Like males are thinking like this, females are thinking like this, younger people are thinking like this, older people are thinking like this.
Hmm.
So those have been taken into account while the research is being done.
Hmm.
But your question is very valid.
Hmm.
If somebody is listening to you or if somebody is reading your thoughts
Hmm.
without taking your permission, then that's a privacy invasion,
Right.
right? And
Hmm.
those things have to be definitely been looked at.
Hmm.
That somebody's privacy is not getting barged in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes we do talk about our devices listening to us,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? Sometimes you don't know what you've clicked and you've given access of the voice,
Right.
uh, right? And we don't know intentionally whether that has been done.
Hmm.
I think those things have to be taken as a part of the regulatory
Hmm.
uh, to ensure that these are not been done. But I think market research is pretty secure and
Hmm.
safe because it's been followed as a norm.
Hmm.
But can somebody take it to the next level? People can, but I think that's a regulatory environment has to be very strong. So
Hmm.
not everybody can read everybody's thoughts,
Right.
right? We are only doing it from a research perspective,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But can tomorrow this be completely commercialized by devices and people start reading each other's thoughts while they're walking on the road? Possibly can, but I think that's where the regulations will come in
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
should come in more at a broader level.
Right. And are there any particular industries that are showing more interest in using such technology?
I think I've seen the usage across all the industries. I've seen it. Consumer goods
Hmm.
is the biggest of them, which is called as fast-moving consumer goods. But I've seen also the usage in automotive,
Hmm.
um, banking, retail, e-commerce, a lot of UI UX design,
Hmm.
where the app designs are getting changed,
Hmm.
website design is getting changed.
Hmm.
Where are you going to look at? Which part is more attracting you? Those are called heat maps in a technical term. But I've
Hmm.
seen this pickup being done sector agnostic, which means every category started using these tools and devices to understand what consumers can't say, what they're not saying. Of
Hmm.
course, but with the permission of the consumers. Yeah.
Right, right, right. And do you have any particular stories to share where the device has helped the companies and or if we talk about the stories of how consumers have reacted to the device, we'll talk about both kind of stories actually.
So I think I'll first tell you how this methodology helped one of the biggest consumer goods company.
Hmm.
They are basically a bar soap manufacturer. I'll
Okay.
not name them. Okay.
Hmm.
They're in the hygiene category. Uh, Normally, when they were doing this traditionally, when it was been done
Hmm.
in a normal methodology, where I ask you and you tell me what they felt that the campaign was all about uh, that the soap is able to remove the dirt and mother being very very happy. It's the same campaign that I told you for seasoning,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So at a claim level, it was very nice.
Hmm.
That of course, the mother wants their kid to be clean, right? The family to be germ free. Who doesn't want that?
Hmm.
So it came out that the campaign was doing extremely well there.
Hmm.
But the moment we tested that with this methodology, what we realized that this was an overused theme,
Hmm.
right? Because it was used in a lot of categories. Even washing powder uses the same
Hmm.
theme, but it was not executed in a very, very different manner.
Hmm.
And that's why a lot of part of that commercial was in a board zone.
Hmm.
Because why? Because as I said, brain has already seen this thing multiple times. The brain will switch off. That's
Hmm.
the reason you don't remember seeing billboard because it's not attracting you.
Hmm.
So when we gave a recommendation to the client, we said that the creative has to be changed
Hmm.
in terms of the context setting, in terms of the entire creative design. We
Hmm.
gave some recommendation on tweaking the creative so that people are not a normal consumer should not be able to just narrate the story in the head. Now
Hmm.
the kid is cleaning, now the germs are getting away, now the mother is happy.
Hmm.
If that was a normal story that got changed
Hmm.
in a different context as a setting,
Hmm.
uh, and that basically helped the creative to get the uplift
Hmm.
because at a claim level it was doing well, but
Hmm.
at a subconscious it was bored, and that's how the creative got changed. That is one of the examples that we give a recommendation to clients.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. So, is there any preparation or any sort of skill set required for the researchers to use the technology?
I think as a preparation is more about, of course, a training is required. Like like the way you use the software,
Hmm.
you cannot use like I've I've been trained on how to use Zoom. Either
Hmm.
I learned or somebody told me.
Hmm.
Then only I'm able to use
Hmm.
Zoom today, right?
Hmm.
In a very similar way, any market researcher is trained on how to set this up,
Hmm.
that how to put the device, how to
Hmm.
connect the device with the desktop,
Hmm.
right? How to prepare the stimulus. So there's a training that every market researcher goes through
Hmm.
when they get into neuroscience-based research.
Hmm.
So there's a
Hmm.
proper protocol which is followed in terms of testing it.
Hmm. So, do you think that in general, if a company, even if you are not engaging with a company that is using the technology in general, should marketers, make use of neuroscience or try to embed this as a skill set?
I think so. I think, see, the world is moving towards technology, right?
Hmm.
When all of these new technologies are coming in, the idea is to experiment with them
Hmm.
and and to see for you. See, I always tell everybody the proof of the pudding is when you eat the pudding.
Hmm.
So sometimes when new technologies come, people can be a bit afraid.
Hmm.
They can be a bit cautious, overly cautious.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
the way humans are.
Right.
Not everybody is experimental,
Right.
right? But that's why we tell people or companies at least try it once.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Not everybody will get into. Not everybody will jump straight away there. But
Right.
I think it's more about just trying and experimenting. And what I've seen, uh, we started with one company trying it.
Hmm.
Now we have got more than 350 companies, all large companies I'm talking about. I'm not talking about SMEs. Uh, 7 years back, 6 years back, we started with one company.
Hmm.
It took me time to convince them to use it.
Hmm.
But once they saw it and they saw the value of it,
Hmm.
and the marketing team loved it,
Hmm.
from one became two, two became 10. Now we are sitting at 350 larger enterprises. around the world using this technology.
Hmm.
So I think, yes, it is a bit challenging always to convince somebody new.
Hmm.
I'll say it was a challenge 6 years back, but
Hmm.
now with the world getting more evolved,
Hmm.
and thanks to LinkedIn and so many other social media,
Hmm.
people also getting trained by themselves. They're getting exposed to it, right?
Hmm.
Marketing team is traveling, they're attending conferences, and they're getting used to it.
Right.
So 6 years back, it was possibly not. It was relatively difficult to convince people or
Hmm.
marketers, but now it's not as difficult to convince because they have been learning by themselves too.
Hmm. Right. So, is this technology used by only large scale companies as of now, or is there a future for smaller and medium-sized companies as well?
I think I'll say mid-size are also using it, but smaller companies are still not using it for a very simple reason that these methodologies can be a bit expensive to implement,
Hmm.
right? So as of now, the companies which are using it are large to mid-size enterprising
Hmm.
because consulting itself is expensive. Let's
Hmm.
put it that way. And on top of that, if you add a neuro element attached to it and there's a cost of development which goes around with it. So
Hmm.
definitely, I think I have not seen smaller companies
Hmm.
adopting it. It's not they don't want to adopt it. I believe technology has not gone to the level
Hmm.
where a smaller companies are able to take it as a part of research in their stride. It's not that they don't want it, but I
Hmm.
believe the technology relatively is more accessible to mid to large because they have relatively more budget to spend on this.
Hmm.
Yeah. But for the smaller companies, as I mentioned, right, we created a software called SurveySensum,
Hmm.
which is like a DIY survey software.
Hmm.
So if a smaller company wants to do their consumer research, they can use SurveySensum.
What is it
Uh,
about? I mean,
okay.
hmm.
So like neuroscience is what I explained to you, right?
Right.
It's a consulting, right? At the end of the day, we are consulting,
Hmm.
and consulting is expensive,
Hmm.
as I mentioned to you, because anybody, whenever you're spending time with somebody,
Hmm.
people will charge you for that time,
Right.
and
Hmm.
that's what makes things expensive.
Hmm.
But for a smaller enterprises, when they cannot afford a consulting company,
Hmm.
for them, what we did, we created a software,
Hmm.
as in the DIY software.
Hmm.
So they can use our platform called SurveySensum,
Okay.
where we just train them how to create surveys, how to send surveys to their customers to collect the information as well as to look at the entire reporting, which is
Hmm.
to understand consumer behavior.
Hmm.
But that's what we have done. We have created a survey platform which can be used by anybody,
Hmm.
so that even a smaller company can get a customer feedback or
Hmm.
customer understanding, so that they can take action based on the customer feedback. And
Okay.
that's how why service system was designed. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, why do we need then Neurosensum if we can do the survey thing itself?
Right. So see, Neurosensum is is a neuroscience based consulting, right? Where I'm consulting you. I'm
Hmm.
giving you a recommendation end to end, right?
Hmm.
I'm doing it for you,
Hmm.
correct? But if you want to do it yourself,
Hmm.
then you can take a service and some piece, which also has a neuroscience element inbuilt in that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, but then I have to train you as a DIY.
Hmm.
Okay, but sometimes, honestly, not everybody is comfortable with DIY. Not everybody has time to do DIY
Right.
in a
Hmm.
larger organization because people are so busy with their own work. At
Hmm.
times, they're happy to pay money for the consulting because they're very time pressed.
Right.
And they've got so many questions coming from the marketing departments and other departments, the product department,
Hmm.
and that's why they need a consulting company to help them out with the hand holding or give them the end-to-end recommendation. That's where neuroscience part comes in.
Hmm.
But if somebody says, I'm happy to do it myself, I don't have budget,
Hmm.
then we tell them, okay, you don't take our consulting offering, you take our software offering.
Hmm.
The software offering also has a neuro element inside it,
Okay.
but we train them to do it as a DIY. It's like
Hmm.
an eye care, right? You
Hmm.
want to IKEA to assemble it for you, they will, but they will charge.
Hmm.
Or you want to assemble yourself, IKEA will charge lesser. It's
Hmm.
almost the model like that. So one is the software, second is the consulting. And
And SurveySensum is used by smaller companies as
it used by both
well.
small and larger. Because
Both.
at times, even larger companies cannot go to a consulting company every time.
Hmm.
For example, a light of a Hero
Hmm.
motor, they might have so many questions. right?
Hmm.
A likes of say a Unity Bank or a
Hmm.
likes of say many other companies, right?
Hmm.
Royal Enfield and so on and so forth. They will have so many questions, but even their budgets are also limited to some extent,
Right.
right? Not every time they can go to a consulting. That's why they use the software like this.
Hmm.
That I can go to more, I can do relatively more consulting versus a smaller company.
Hmm.
But even for them also the budget is a limit to an extent,
Hmm.
right? And that's why the software they come into picture. That when there's a complex problem, they go to a consulting organization
Hmm.
or our consulting arm. But when the problem is not that complex, then they can do it DIY.
Hmm. Got it. And we would really want to know, what do you aim at? I mean, with Neurosensum or let's say SurveySensum, what are we basically, looking forward to achieve?
See, I think which goes back to why I started them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in 2018, when I started these two brands,
Hmm.
uh, I think the objective was to bring technology in the field of market research,
Hmm.
okay, to make a difference.
Hmm.
Because from the last 30, 40 years, I saw the same thing were happening.
Hmm.
Clients were not happy with the insights they were getting,
Hmm.
and they had so many more questions to ask, but they didn't have a good software
Hmm.
that they can do it themselves.
Hmm.
So the big part was technology. The piece was being missed in market research.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when the world was moving towards technology, that's where the entire concept came in. Let's bring technology into the field of market research.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. And I think if you ask me, uh, I believe we like it or we don't like. I think technology is here to stay,
Hmm.
and technology ultimately is making our life easier,
Hmm.
is giving us better accuracy to what it was in the past. The problem statement still has remained the same,
Hmm.
but technology is helping us to solve those problem statements better.
Hmm.
Now with Neurosensum and service, see with SurveySensum, objective is very simple.
Hmm.
Like with AirAsia, everybody can fly.
Hmm.
With SurveySensum, everybody should be able to do surveys.
Hmm.
It's not that only large companies can do through a service, even small companies can do surveys.
Hmm. Hmm.
So with SurveySensum, the objective was everybody can do surveys by themselves if they want to understand customer behavior. With Neurosensum, the objective was if you want to read the mind of the consumer
Hmm.
and you want a consulting on top of that, that's the Neurosensum was born.
Hmm.
But the idea was to implement technology, bring technology in the field of market research,
Hmm.
which was possibly missed for ages and ages.
Hmm.
From the
Hmm.
last 30 years, market research, I did not see any changes
Hmm.
happening. But with methodologies like this, now I can see a lot of changes are happening in the field of market research or
Hmm.
consumer research.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's what my vision is to keep bringing these technologies into the field of MR or market research or consumer research so that at the end of the day, clients should be able to make that more decisions
Hmm.
and make more informed decisions. It should not happen based on gut feel,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So the gut feel should be as minimized as possible
Hmm.
and data should be utilized as much as possible.
Right, right. And are there any other new technologies you're betting on when it comes to marketing research?
I'll say there's one thing that we are betting on, which again is a part of service and some, I'll say.
Hmm.
So normally what happens in a software is able to give you the data. So when you fill a survey, software is able to give you the data in the form of a chart,
Hmm.
right? It will tell you South India thinks like this, North India thinks like this, but that's a chart.
Hmm.
But you have to read that chart by yourself
Hmm.
to interpret. But not everybody is a trained analyst to read that chart,
Right.
right? Not everybody is good with mathematics and they can read the chart and they can understand the chart. Now, what we are betting in is something called as NLG,
Okay.
natural language generation,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is what we will see coming in SurveySensum very soon,
Hmm.
where software will be able to write insights
Hmm.
of what customers are talking about.
Okay.
So when you fill a survey, somebody else fills a survey, 1 million people fill the survey, it
Hmm.
comes into the chart, but you don't have to interpret the chart by yourself because
Hmm.
software automatically will tell you
Hmm.
people are not liking your product because it's bitter, people are not liking your campaigns
Hmm.
because the story was boring. So you don't
Hmm.
have to interpret yourself.
Hmm.
Software can do that interpretation and give you the summary by yourself. So
Okay.
that's the world of AI, NLG
Hmm.
is what we are betting on, because
Hmm.
that will make a life of the client very easy, that you don't need to go to consultant every time.
Right.
Will that kill consulting companies? I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But at least that will make the life of our customers or our clients easier. That's a separate, everybody should be able to do surveys. Not only that, you can send surveys, but everybody should be able to interpret without the use of analyst department.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
You don't need an analyst because the software will be able to analyze that for you.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
For example, imagine a software which can analyze the conversation that you and me are having.
Hmm. Hmm.
So rather than you going through minutes of meeting, transcript, but if there's a software at the back end and it can give you a summary
Hmm.
in six sentences, what Rajiv and Anjali has spoken,
Hmm.
and what is the conclusion, what is the recommendation, what is the way forward.
Hmm. Hmm.
It will make your life easier, right? Because it will help you to put a blog accordingly, and
Hmm.
that's the world of AI that we're talking about.
Right, right. No, that's amazing. And I don't know, like, don't you think that our minds will one day stop working? Only we'll just be relying on AI technology.
I think it's a very debatable question. Like, with ChatGPT coming in,
Hmm.
has our mind stopped working?
Hmm.
Uh, Possibly yes, possibly no.
Hmm.
Right? It has stopped working because we are not writing as much because we can ask ChatGPT.
Hmm.
But it is also working in some sense that you're now exploring so many different things.
Hmm.
The neuron, the pattern which was missing in your brain
Hmm.
is suddenly getting more developed,
Right.
right? Because you did not have time to learn those. But with
Hmm.
the advent of technology,
Hmm.
you're exploring more. For example, when I 3 years back on ChatGPT,
Hmm.
I never thought that cooking can be so easy.
Hmm.
I never thought possibly writing an opening speech can be so easy.
Hmm.
I was not a good writer, never been a great writer.
Hmm.
But when I'm doing this, I'm experimenting also more things in my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Beyond it was beyond what I was used to.
Right.
So in a way, is it making me lazy? Yes. But
Hmm.
am I learning new things?
Hmm.
Also, yes, right? So
Hmm.
ultimately, my brain is also getting utilized in learning those new things that I did not know before.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So as I said, the answers can be, a mix of both.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. The evolution of technology has been amazing. But, what would be your concluding thoughts for, I think, both sides of people are watching the podcast, I would say the people who are in the, market research side and those who are consumers as well. So what would you say to bridge that gap between the both sides? How do we utilize technology or lastly about Neurosensum as well.
So see, I think, of course, for market research, it's very easy,
Hmm.
right? For a market researcher, they are learning new things.
Hmm.
They always wanted to give better insights to clients,
Hmm.
insights which are more deeper,
Hmm.
which can impact client business. See, at the end of the day, when we work with companies, we want their business to go up,
Right.
right? We want their campaigns to do better. We want their products to do better. We want their packaging to appeal more.
Hmm.
So for a market researcher, the simple story is they will love it and they're loving it.
Hmm.
But for a consumer, I will also say it's not to be scared that these things are being used
Hmm.
to understand them better. But see, at the end of the day, a consumer is also benefiting.
Hmm.
If I can make a product which can appeal a consumer more,
Right.
which will benefit them more, why not?
Hmm. Hmm.
Today, if a Tesla can benefit a consumer more than a General Motors because of this technology, of course, Tesla is benefiting, its engineers are benefiting, but then the consumers are also benefiting.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Right? When we are buying EV cars ourselves,
Hmm.
I also as a consumer I'm benefiting out of it.
Hmm.
Right? So I think that's what I see for consumers, because ultimately everything that they are going to use will be a notch better because
Hmm.
it's being done with thorough understanding of the consumers like them
Hmm.
on what will appeal to them.
Hmm. 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 I think we all need to keep an open mind to
Yeah,
embrace the technology because that is doing wonders itself.
right. Yeah, I'm a firm believer on that.
Hmm.
That we have to always uh, keep our mind open. I think, yeah, technology will never take humans away, but
Hmm.
it's here to help us
Hmm.
uh, in a direction of becoming better,
Hmm.
in a direction of improving ourselves better,
Hmm.
improving our decision making, improving our choices better.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Lovely, great. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for this insightful conversation. And I would say it was insightful as well as very exciting to understand this technology. And I'm definitely going to research more about it as well. Thank you so much for this. And thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Anjali, for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.